Good morning. I want to first of all appreciate Dr. Philip for the collaboration for the past 3 years or so, and for the support given me by CEAMLS, the organizers of this program. My name is Olabanjo Olusola, and I will be joining this for Howard University Department of Information Systems and Supply Chain Management. This morning, we want to demonstrate an ongoing project, um, a framework named BERTRAG, which is a BERT-Enhanced Retrieval-Augmented Generation Framework for preserving cultural knowledge. And we are using Awori and Ogo of Lagos State, Nigeria, to test the framework. Indigenous cultural knowledge, especially where we have a multilingual country like Nigeria that has about 250 ethnic groups, about 500 languages. It helps to preserve our collective identity of the people in terms of their history, traditions, and values, worldview, whatever seems precious to them. Okay, so, and much of this knowledge exists basically in oral traditions, local archives, rituals, and sometimes, most times, community governed documents. Rapid urbanization that has to do with moving in and moving out of the cultural space, language laws, inadequate digitization, and all threatens the existence of this cultural knowledge. Therefore, we need technology to help us. Artificial intelligence has played a vast role in making this possible, especially with the advent of large language models. As much as these models have demonstrated remarkable understanding of human language, and especially in the age of LLM generation, these models still hallucinate and produce unverified documents because of their transformer architecture. Existing RAG systems have also improved factual grounding, but yet they are majorly trained on web scale and encyclopedic data. All this, as much as they help digital humanities, strengthen the existence and preservation of these cultural elements. Why then do large language models hallucinate? The first point is because they are probabilistic in nature. All right, so models, LLMs, depend solely on training data sets. On their terms, they have a lot of parameters, and then they just based on the generation of this parameter, of this token is based on the previous token, and then highly probabilistic, making it very, very difficult to ascertain its factual generation. Also, there is no evidence in its verification or because it is parametric in nature, it doesn't really point to any document. It relies solely on its training data. And then if you look at its distribution shift, the parametric memory, which is highly limited, especially when you're even giving it an ambiguous query. For instance, if I ask which king actually ruled in a particular year, LLM will scan through whatever it has been trained with. If it doesn't find any, very arrogant, it won't tell you it didn't find it. It just looks for whatever is next to whatever he believes is next to the truth, and then gives it to you. If you tell an LLM, goats eat grass, it will tell you, yes, you are correct. It does. But you say, but sometimes it eats meat. Can we say it is, then it begins to agree with you. So it really hallucinates, and we do not want this as a framework to help us preserve our culture. So then we are proposing BERTRAG, which is a kind of framework that integrates domain-adapted BERT embeddings, curated indigenous knowledge corpus, metadata-aware retrieval, provenance-aware generation, and claim-level faithfulness verification, as well as a robust abstention mechanism. And this will help us ensure a culturally grounded and trustworthy, responsible, and explainable AI-assisted knowledge retrieval. Why are we selecting Awori and Ogu? Because these two ethnic groups live at the far ends of Lagos State of Nigeria, and they have different elements, distinct elements. They have different languages, despite that they remain in the same state. They have different beliefs. They point to different gods and traditions and rites. So very good for us because we cannot cover, because of the scope of the funding that we had, we can't actually cover everything, although we are also seeking funding to complete the project for the entire Lagos State. So we are selecting them because they are vast, they are distinct, they will form a benchmark for other culture. All right. Where the novelty of this research lies is in the fact that we now have a culturally adapted embeddings that is also metadata constrained, has a claim level grounding, and whatever is generated must be pointing to a particular level of provenance. And also we are proud of the fact that this is heavily human in the loop kind of AI. So we compared the existence of BERTRAG with LLM and RAG in terms of the retrieval grounding, in terms of the embeddings and the rest. And we tick most of the boxes that we have, not all of them, yes. Although RAG takes us closer to what we want or what we wanted, but BERTRAG, because of its nature, its architecture, helps us and takes us closer to what we want. So what we did in this work is to go into villages and to go into archives, get domain knowledge from experts and of course from our community groups, and then we processed that, we pre-processed it using the general natural language processing steps. And then we initialized the BERT embedding, which is the base model, and then we trained it on the corpus that we generated or that we collected from the field. And then we are able to ask this BERTRAG to do a particular task and point to a particular document or pick some documents and rank them appropriately. So after doing that, we now have our query plus the documents retrieved, and then we'll now form an LLM generator over the query and the document, and then ask it to give us a faithful generation of the answer. And then we use experts to evaluate the answers. So the novelty of this work lies in the fact that although BERT can do a lot of question answering, we actually retrained the BERT by fine-tuning it using the mass language modeling to update the weight of the traditional BERT and then be able to generate a semantic space, for the new queries that will come, so that when new queries come, they form another space in the vector representation, and then they give us a document that can answer that particular question. And then we couple this together and give it back to an LLM to generate a response, because naturally BERT will not be able to generate human readable, a response that flows easily. So we put all of them together and pass it to a generator. And then we constrain the LLM to state only facts that are in the retrieved document. So that's how BERTRAG actually works. So BERTRAG has been demonstrated here as a human AI collaboration project, which makes it really suitable for improving trust in the community. Right from community data collection to pre-processing to the embedding generation and to the retrieval and the prompt construction for the new LLM generator. And then whatever the outcome is, we have experts that are able to rank the faithfulness of the claims of BERTRAG to the actual. This is more like the entity relation diagram. So I'll just skip that for the moment. So we try to represent whatever we are doing mathematically, and then I will just skip it because I've already explained most of it. So every query that we want to pass to BERTRAG, BERTRAG will generate a response based on the query given the documents that we have. So, and then the retrieved evidence will contain some documents out of the scope of documents that we have, and then run a cosine similarity, and then generate a new embedding with its document, and then we'll pass it to our LLM generator. So I will just skip briefly to our setup. All right, so after developing BERTRAG, we set up evaluation tasks for it. And then we divided the tasks into 3: question answering, narrative synthesis, and summarization. And the reason for this is to create a balanced mixture of factual, explanatory, and interpretive queries. So these are examples of questions under this task that we ask it to answer. And the reason for question answering is to evaluate fact retrieval. And to do summary, we are trying to test how well BERTRAG does a multi-document synthesis. And then for summary, we are trying to see how well it understands information that we have passed, to it. And then we compared it against 4 other representative systems: ChatGPT, BM25 plus LLM, BERT question answering, and standard RAG. Standard RAG is just a RAG trying to retrieve documents, but then BERTRAG has BERT embedding to it before generating. So I will just keep the configurations. This is for our model, and the configuration for the embedding that we have generated from BERTRAG for retrieval, and then the generator that helps us to combine the query plus the document, the retrieved document. This is the configuration. We try to tighten the temperature and the top P just to be able to generate something very close to the facts. And then we employed experts to sit on a Likert scale for interpretive accuracy, for cultural sensitivity, for the context, for provenance. Provenance has to do with this that you have said. Point me to a document that says it. So, and then we check how, even if you have retrieved the document, how faithful are you to the document that you point to? So, and then we did overall cultural fidelity. So, quickly, I will skip the maths. And then this is the algorithm that powers BERTRAG. Take the corpus, do the offline processing, generate the embedding based on BERT, and use the BERT to retrieve the documents before adding a prompt and then passing it to a generator to give you an answer based on the task that you're asking it to do. In the retrieval performance, in terms of we evaluated the retrieval performance based on recall, based on mean reciprocal ranking, and the normalized discounted cumulative gain. So, and if you look at this, you see BM25 itself has a very low recall as compared to generic BERT, and the generic BERT as well was improved based on the domain adapted metadata that we had. Across the evaluation metric, we discovered that our framework is actually doing better in understanding culture or the culture of the people in Lagos State. So we also did hallucination analysis against the variants of representative systems that we have. And then you see ChatGPT is having faithfulness of 64.2. And then, but when we combine retrieval plus extractive QA, it gives us 80, which is significant over LLM. And but then we just pick BERTRAG alone without the domain embedding that we have in step 2 of the workflow that I showed before. It was a little improved. And then you see the improvement down the framework that we are trying to put out there for the people to use. And in terms of hallucination, you see how things go down over time. And the metrics that we have down there is we are trying to see the hallucination of BERTRAG over others as it concerns the historical, the geographical, the lineage, the ritual, and the temporal status of things. But then we'll discover that our BERTRAG under ritual actually has a very low hallucination because we enforce a kind of provenance that do not talk about ritual stuff unless it is categorized in the metadata as open, because we have open, we have closed in the metadata. So we check for robustness analysis in terms of if we restrict the number of documents to be returned in our retrieval stage, if we keep increasing it, what happens to the faithfulness and the hallucination level of our BERTRAG? So we discovered that as we increase the number of top K retrieval or allowed retrieve documents, we'll see that faithfulness keeps increasing while hallucination actually keeps decreasing. That's what this slide is trying to do. So we also broke down the task, the question answering, the narrative synthesis, and the summary. And then we check for the faithfulness, the hallucination, and then we see that as we increase the number of top K retrieved documents for each task, you see hallucination is actually decreasing while faithfulness to the claims generated by our LLM becomes actually increasing. What then is the implication? The heat map that we showed helps us to understand that hallucination is not uniformly distributed across tasks. And so lineage-related claims are the most difficult for our framework. And ritual knowledge is highly sensitive, so it returns very few documents. Place-based narratives such as, okay, we're talking about places where events have occurred in the past, which LLM cannot answer. Okay, so we say that it requires a lot of contextual retrieval. So what we discover is that BERTRAG, our framework, consistently reduces error across every category. So what are we addressing today? We are addressing the fact that BERTRAG can help us improve the trust that generative AI has in preserving the culture and tradition of Indigenous people of Lagos State. And then this contributes basically to digital humanities in terms of people can still adopt technology and still preserve their culture and still maintain a level of provenance, a level of governance to their documents, some level of trust, some level of responsibility in our deployment. So then what are the practical implications? We intend to deploy this as we go on for the entire Lagos State, especially for the Ibile. Ibile are the Ekwe, Badagry, and the rest of the kind of geographical distribution of Lagos State. And we want to use it as well to form a tool for teaching general studies in Nigeria. So what then are the limitations? What do we think we need to do better in this work? Languages, we collected this data set from their very original source, the Egun and the Awori. So we translated it and all that. So maybe in the future, we can introduce some level of translator to the model so that we do not need a lot of human involvement in it. As much as we want human involvement, it's not things that computer can efficiently, do for us. And then we want to make it multimodal in the sense that only text for now. So we want to do audio and images and be able to do some stuff. Embedding models can also be improved using E5, BGE, GTE. For now, we have experts in the loop. We intend to have community in the loop for more acceptance and more trust in the system. Maybe cultural twin in the future. I know it will be difficult, but then that is why we are embarking on this journey. And then we want to also do cross-cultural comparative evaluation of the model to see, does it favor a particular ethnic group than the other? So these are the things we intend to do in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, unfortunately, to keep the session on track, we have to go for, but we can maybe take one question. Maybe we'll bring our next speaker up in the meantime so we can stay on track.
Thank you. This is really inspiring work. I was really curious about the beginning of this because the RAG approach depends on the quality of the corpus.
Yes.
But the corpus itself is based on indigenous knowledge, which you said was in an oral tradition. It's very interactively based. It's contextually dependent. So as you digitize that content, you kind of inevitably decontextualize it and strip it of that interactive and contextual nature. Can you reflect on the level of comfort that people in the community felt with that, and how that influenced the whole system?
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so the bulk of the correctness of BERTRAG depends largely on who was interviewed, how the interpretation was done, a lot of back and forth between the researchers and the community, especially the designated person in the community to do that. And we see a particular one trying to contradict the other one by saying, oh, you overstated this claim, this is not true, and that is not true. Basically, the framework is flexible in the sense that the framework is available. We just need to understand more how to stay faithful to the human in the loop system in terms of gathering of evidence, in terms of the things that are released to us, the quality assurance of all of these things before passing it to the data set. We are not talking general, we are not talking explicitly about how well BERTRAG protects the actual culture. We are talking about how it is a reliable framework for preserving any culture at all if this pipeline is actually faithfully maintained. So that is exactly the stage we are in now. When we get to the deployment stage, then we start to think about how correct, how acceptable is this claim by this culture to every other culture. It's actually a complex system that we find ourselves in, but then we hope to actually do better when we want to deploy this.